Welcome to episode 17 of the Powerhouse Podcast, where we bring you the powerhouses of the mitochondrial disease world. I'm your host, Brian Harmon, President and CEO of the United Mitochondrial Disease Foundation. And after a couple episodes off, Dr. Phil Yeski returns. Phil, what have you been up to? You haven't been on my podcast the last couple episodes.
Yeah, well rested. Vocal cords have been rested. I've got a lot of webinars coming up, so it's probably a good thing. But Brian, the mission keeps going, and we've got lots of exciting things going on. And
I want to dive into a few of these things. Well, you actually haven't been a stranger to podcasts at the end of the summer here too. You've been a guest on other podcasts. Yeah. I'm a little jealous that you've been pulled in, but what a great opportunity to showcase UMDF and the mitochondrial disease world. I know you've had a chance to pop on a few different episodes recently.
No, I agree. And particularly since these tend to be podcasts that reach very different audience than we might reach through a UMDF sponsored podcast. And I think it's really important, a couple of messages there, obviously front of mind for me are the rare inherited mitochondrial diseases that UMDF represents. But this overarching message that mitochondrial health is something that each and every one of us, every human being on the face of the earth should be concerned about if they want to age in a healthy way, I think just helps to make it more relatable, right? So there's a secondary benefit to our rare disease community that people hear the word mitochondria and get comfortable with it. And it seems more natural then that there may be some diseases associated with these little organelles that a lot of people don't know much about. So, it's a little bit of proselytizing, one podcast at a time.
Well, anytime that message gets beyond seventh grade biology class, right? We talk to folks who don't know our world as well. There's a tertiary understanding of the mitochondria. And so that opportunity to share a little bit more about the mitochondria, and of course, mitochondrial disease is always a good thing. And it probably could have happened at a better time as we were on the tail end of Mitochondrial Disease Awareness Week. We just wrapped that up. And what a thunderclap of activity happening between all the great projects UMDF is working on, just great mito facts to share with the community, and really driven by the patient families. I love that UMDF is out there talking about this, but our community is asking for more. They want to share. I'm sure that's been your experience with some of the programs that we've
absolutely. I always reserve some time in the week to just absorb. It helps just reinforce we're not in this alone. We can't do it alone. Right. And we're so blessed, so fortunate to have partner organizations, patient families, that help to advance this mission. And I'm of a certain age now that have been involved long enough, right, that you start to be able to look back and see how things have changed in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. It's really incredible and very, very inspirational.
And on the strong backs of our volunteer network that continue to push our message and bring to light mitochondrial disease, and particularly where I spent my time over Awareness Week was shining that light on those who make decisions that could affect patient families. So I spent Awareness Week speaking with various congressmen and congresswomen on the Hill virtually about some of the initiatives we have going on, like access to telehealth, access to medical nutrition so that our patient families can manage their disease better. This is a constant drumbeat. I think it's, in some respects, it's too often one of our best kept secrets here at UMDF is that we are consistently beating that drum on Capitol Hill to unlock dollars for mitochondrial disease research and provide better care for our patient families. I know you've seen great growth in that over the years as well.
Oh, for sure. From an advocacy point of view, drum beating is what it's all about. And it's consistent, sustained, beating of the drum that, and the ability to see when there are opportunities or windows that open up in the legislature and some kind of process that then you're prepared, right? Like you've built relationships, you know what the priorities are, and you can mobilize quickly and take advantage of that. And for sure, one of our biggest successes in the time I've been involved is the ability to tap into the Department of Defense and their very large funding pool for research, to broaden that to include mitochondrial disease as one of the 40 or so topics of interest that are congressionally mandated, right? So it all goes hand in hand. It's Congress, because they have oversight of these agencies, and then you have to have the contacts inside, like the Department of Defense, to be able to kind of build up the programs in a way. And this has led to hundreds of millions of dollars of additional research money available to advance mitochondrial disease research. So that all came out of advocacy efforts.
Yeah, every single year, UMDF is working to make sure we're part of that appropriations process, and we've had great success in that, and we have to continue to beat that drum. Of course, the big prize that our eyes are on is a pathway towards treatments and cures. And I think about this meteoric rise in clinical trials activity, and as that arena continues to broaden and we get more connected in that space, we know we're going to have to chart a course from a regulatory standpoint as well, too.
Sure.
So more to come on that. I certainly encourage our viewers to check out umdf.org, where we have some great information on our advocacy efforts. And it's just a pitch to everyone, too, to become an advocate for UMDF. This is a way to lend your voice. And I'll tell you, after going through many different Hill visits, certainly they love to hear from our organization, but they want to hear from their constituents. So it's really important to us that we have patient families, doctors, researchers, friends of the organization reaching out as well, too. Speaking of friends of the organization, we were with so many friends these past several months at our Energy for Life walks. It's one of my favorite times of the year. It's kind of tail end of summer into early fall, Energy for Life season, off to a really great start. I'll tell you, walking back to an event and seeing people and being live in person, There's nothing like it. As much as I want virtual events to be a big part of our organization, there's just something about being able to hug and to connect and talk, and we're off to a really great start.
Yeah, really the case. I felt this and experienced it with the Pittsburgh walk a little bit earlier this year. And then being at our symposium, right, and seeing people, most of which for the first time in 3 years. It's a completely different dynamic. And, I think as humans, we really do crave that, that human interaction, and particularly around something that we're all so passionate about. So it's really great to see these walks off to a strong start, and we're able to start to get people back together again.
Well, one of the real joys of my job is attending these walks and having the opportunity to meet the patient families we serve, right? So I get to hear from our staff, and I see the emails come across of families who are dedicating their time and their energy to supporting our organization, our mission. But it makes it all that more special when you get out to a walk and get a chance to meet these families. And that's our special guest today. I'm really delighted to welcome into the Powerhouse our guests today, Nick and Stephanie Stancombe. Nick and Stephanie are the chairs of the Indianapolis Energy for Life Walk. And Nick, Stephanie, welcome to the Powerhouse.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for having us.
We're delighted to have you. And I was just telling Phil, one of my favorite moments of this summer was parking my car in Indianapolis. It was the first walk I had been back to in 2 years, and rolling up to our Energy for Life walk. And for those in our community who don't know what that is, it's our signature fundraising walk event. We have them all across the country. And I had the pleasure of joining the Indy Walk and parking my car and a little bit of a walk across the parking lot and seeing the sea of green shirts, the sea of other team color shirts, and the combination of smiles and hugs in just moments. And it made me just kind of sink a little bit in a good way to say, you know what, we're back together, and this is a really important thing. So I want to start there. I want to talk a little about Energy for Life, and I think we're going to probably come back a little bit to your story, your mito journey. But let's talk about that. Tell us a little bit about how you came to found the UMDF?
I'll let Nick kind of start that, because it did start with our daughter, Gwendolyn. She had a rare mitochondrial disorder called cytochrome C oxidase deficiency. And so that's kind of where our journey began. We were actually in the hospital at Riley, downtown Indianapolis, trying to understand and figure out what was going on with her. We had, been going through so many tests, and she had seen so many specialists, and we were having a really hard time understanding what was causing these issues, because at first nothing was too present in her. She was just kind of experiencing these minor symptoms here and there, but then did suffer from a traumatic event that landed her in the PICU there at Riley. And that's kind of where Nick started to, do his thing, where he just dives into research, really dives into trying to understand what was happening with her. So I'll kind of just let him share a little
Nick,
bit
can
about
you
how
tell us about that?
Yeah. So just to kind of step back. So when we got the diagnosis, prior to that, I personally had no experience with mitochondrial diseases. I had no understanding of them, really never even heard of them until we got that diagnosis. And it was just it was a punch in the gut when we got that, because not only did we get the diagnosis, but we got the prognosis of what the rest of her life was going to look like. And I think as a father, it's hard to accept that. So I spent every waking moment from there researching, reading, peer-reviewed articles about what research has been done on her particular issue, any clinical trials. And, throughout all that research in the hospital, I stumbled across the UMDF. Obviously, when you're on the internet, I think when you're searching about mitochondrial diseases, the UMDF is, front and center of a lot of that. And that's at least how I got accompanied with the organization. Also with some help from our good friend Sydney Wangert. She started a GoFundMe just to promote research. And at that time, we didn't really know where those funds were going to go. But luckily, she was working with the UMDF on the side and worked to get an impact fund set up for her to continue promoting research and access to testing. I think those are our two areas of concern, because just specific to our journey in particular, the testing and the access to it was really critical. It took a little bit longer than we had hoped, but we just hope that families in the future can have a less turbulent journey than we did, getting to those results, and that might mean better quality time with their loved ones. And that's kind of why the UMDF is near and dear to our hearts. We want to continue helping families, since we know what it's like to be on that side of it and have that perspective.
I want to come back to talk a little about your hope for the mito community and where we think we can ease that journey. Gwen lost her battle about a year ago, and you all have you've harnessed your grief for an opportunity to build awareness and raise critical funds. And have you shared already, Nick and Stephanie, help other families ease their journey as well too. I want to talk a little bit about that, that mito journey and your resolve throughout this process as well too. And Stephanie, I'm hoping you can share a little bit about as a family making that decision to do something powerful and to do something impactful, as you all state, to bring a larger and impactful legacy for Gwen. Talk to us about that decision you and Nick made.
Yeah, so it actually started when we found out about how she was diagnosed, when the walks were occurring. We found out that her walk in particular, the Indy walk in particular, was on her birthday. So that was 9/10 of this year. So Gwen would have been 2, and that was our first sign. This absolutely we needed to do something in some form or fashion to, raise awareness, have her impact continue, and continue her legacy there. So that was kind of the first thing that brought us to, that drew us in. And then not only did we want to, get a walk going or get a team started for her, ended up coining it Gwen's Gang, tried to make it a little catchy there. We decided to also become committee members. That was definitely something that surprised me when Nick came to me and said that he wanted to be a committee member. Typically, I don't usually see that type of involvement from him. So when he came to me and said that, I was like, okay, like we're all in. We're getting it. We're doing this with our whole hearts, and it just kind of felt so right. Everything felt so perfect. The fact that it was on her birthday, the fact that both of us were just so passionate about helping others, and we really understood immediately the areas that we wanted to also impact other families as well. So we wanted to help those individuals, with access to the test, with raising awareness to specialists, to doctors, because I think we've talked about it with other families as well. Diagnosis, can come across in many different ways, but all it takes is one person to really say, hey, this could be mitochondrial, this could be metabolic. For us, it was my friend Sydney. She is a wonderful nurse. She's the one who actually started our impact fund for Gwen. And she's the first person that ever mentioned mitochondrial diseases to us, and just how the breadth of them is just so wide. And they vary just so differently from person to person. And that this could be what was, causing our baby to have those developmental delays that we were seeing. No other specialist had really even mentioned it before that. And so that was kind of one of the areas that we were just like, okay, we definitely need to raise awareness. And since then, this year's walk was so successful. We were so impressed with the amount of people that came and showed up for Gwen, and to help us, really get through not only that really trying day of it being her second birthday, but then also continue her legacy. And I think from the amount of people, Brian, you were there, that came out to support us and Gwen that day, you could really feel the love. You can tell that we're doing our part and carrying Gwen's message, because it really is all because of her, and we just want to make her proud.
Phil, as I hear Nick and Stephanie talk, I think about, this harnessing of this energy isn't rare for our organizations. In some respects, it's the core, it's the beginnings of our organization. Our founder, Chuck Mohan, and the passing of his daughter in starting this event, and families every year that unfortunately find themselves in this part of this journey, making a commitment to bring awareness, share more, open up more doors. And we're so proud and feel very responsible to be alongside them doing this. But Phil, I know this is something that, has been at the very grassroots of our organization for 25 years.
Yeah, very much so. And, I've had the privilege of, being on a call with Nick and Stephanie and, talking about their family, prior to this. And, I wish their journey was more the exception than the rule, that so many in our community have that challenging diagnostic period. And, quickly, I think we aligned on, that being a really substantial priority for our organization, and, in serving to honor, the memory of, Gwen as well, to try and improve the diagnostic journey, get to diagnosis, as quickly as possible. In other settings, Brian, we've talked about how that's critical to optimal care, right? That means the healthcare provider knows exactly what their patient is dealing with and can optimize. And we're all working to add more tools to the toolbox so the healthcare providers have treatments and drugs that they can make available. But there's already, right, a number of things that can improve the quality of life, however long that life might be. But then it dovetails into clinical trials, right? And being able to bring those therapeutics to market. You need a diagnosis to be part of a cohort, right? A subset of the patient population that a specific intervention is targeting. So there are many, many benefits and possibilities that emerge from having a diagnosis. Of course, it also factors into family planning, right? And additional children and perhaps extended family, right? So many aspects associated with it. And as you know, this is now where we're trying to turn our attention with some of the latest programs and initiatives at UMDF to improve access to genetic testing to be able to get more diagnosed patients, to help those families, but also help the community do their part in therapeutic development.
I think it's important, Phil, just to put in a quick plug there, for patient families on the diagnostic journey to connect with UMDF by calling a 1-800 number or a Connect form, and keeping an eye on our genetic testing webpage as well, too, is, we've been very proud to run some pilot programs recently. Right. And of course, our aim is to continue to sustain those programs. And, I don't want to sound too opportunistic here, but of course, all these things are driven by these community events that we talk about, right? Families like the Stancombes who Sure. make a commitment to, Nick coming home and saying, hey, we're going to be on this committee. We're all in. But it goes beyond that, right? It goes to aunts and uncles and grandmas and grandpas and Dolores at the church and Bob who serves lasagna in the neighborhood Italian shop. We have to make sure that we're finding ways to connect so many other people on this. And Nick, Stephanie, that's what you seem to have done really well here. Referencing back to me walking to the Indy Walk and seeing all these people. And I go up to our colleagues and say, wow, this is incredible. And they quickly come over and introduce me to you to share that this is your big team. The event was driven by so many folks from your team. And I'd love to talk to you about that. Stephanie, you mentioned Sydney as being a centerpiece of your support network. And I was hoping you all could share a little bit more about kind of who makes up your support network. Nick, maybe you can comment a little bit on who are some of the other folks that I saw at the walk there that day.
So, I'd like to thank again everyone that came out and volunteered. So we have a wonderful community around us, and just a great support system. And we're just so grateful and blessed to have all those people in our lives. Most of the people there, so we had Steph's family. She had her uncle and her immediate family there, and then her friends, Kimmy and Sydney, and they came out and helped us. And along with that, we had a lot of my childhood friends and their parents come out. There was about, I think, 12 of them that came out early, helped us set up. They ran, the merchandise table. They ran the 50-50 raffle, and they just, and when you tell them to do something, like they really, like it was like an army. They came and they worked and they got things done, and it couldn't have been a success without them. So, it's not just us. We may be rallying people, but it still takes, an army to make a change. And I think that coalition of people that we have now is just going to continue to grow over the years. And I personally don't have any dedication to anything, as intense as this. And I'm committed to growing it. And we have a vision for it, essentially, that we want to see in the future. And this is just the beginning. This was our inaugural walk, and we're just so excited to watch it grow over the years and to continue improving and raising more funds and raising more awareness. So
I can see your wheels spinning as I was meeting you. It's always a real joy when you're at these events and you meet dedicated volunteers who are at the event to literally think about, what am I going to do next year to make this even better? Mm-hmm. And while we're on this topic, Energy for Life is an area that we're always looking to continue to grow. And as we uncover more mito families around the globe, We want to find places for them to connect. And the beauty of Energy for Life is, I'm no shame about it being a fundraiser. It's so important. But what it also is an opportunity to connect with other families as well, too. And I thought maybe if there's a listener or a viewer who maybe on the fence of becoming a Energy for Life participant or a chair of an event, give me your TED talk on being a successful chair. Like what are some of the things you do to rally the troops through EFL?
I think it was a lot of social media, which, we're definitely no stranger to being in tech. I think that was probably one of our main channels that we really voiced the walk through. Nick did a wonderful job also making posts through the webpage that we created for our team as well. That ended up being a lot, getting those announcements out just regularly to the team members who had already signed up, just kind of reminding them that, this is upcoming, this is happening here, and this is kind of what's going to be occurring at the walk as well. So he did a fantastic job in kind of keeping those informed who had already signed up. But I think for the most part, a lot of it was word of mouth. Just, having a conversation with, a server at a restaurant. We visited quite a few places around our local area because we've been living in Carmel for quite some time now, and just kind of, getting the word out to those local businesses as well, letting them know, this is happening, and this is why it's so important to us. So we're definitely going to get a little bit better about that this year, especially now that we're kind of ahead of the game. We got a little late into it last year, so we're just hoping to, learn from that and continue to reach out to those people early and often.
Nick, are there any other beans to spill in terms of next year's plans? I don't want Tanya Hanscom, our National Walk Director, to ding me for asking, but.
So we've already started working on next year's walk, contacting vendors, for food, and one of the big changes I think we want to make for this year is moving the walk, closer to where families are located, making it easier to access. And it's going to be in our local community in Carmel at Cox Hall Gardens next year on September 9th. So we're excited to be working with the Hamilton County Parks to get that move there and continue it there. And I think, with change comes, worrisome and just a little bit of anxiety. But I think, for things to grow, they need to change. And I think this is going to be a good move for the Energy for Life walkathon in Indianapolis. But to also kind of piggyback off what Steph was saying, I think one of the things that has really made this successful and been the catalyst for our success has been Gwendolyn. I mean, telling her story and really connecting with people on a more of an emotional level, I think, because just telling somebody that, hey, there's this walk for this disease you may not have heard of doesn't really resonate with too many people, but telling people, your story, which I think now we've told so many countless times, and it's truly an honor and a privilege to be able to share Gwendolyn's story. And when we do start telling the story, people do listen and they're engaged and they want to help us. So I think that's been the catalyst for this year's success, and I think it'll continue being the catalyst for future years to come. So
we always hope that's what centers us at UMDF too, as the real patients and families and kids and adults who are going through this. And Phil, I think back to shortly after I started, I came in and put an embargo on pictures of the mitochondrial. And I know as a scientist, that just really hurt you. We allow it on the science side a little bit, but as we think about the core mission of UMDF, the commitment we made was we need to tell the stories of Gwen. We need to tell the stories of Tim and Sue and John, all of them, because that's what makes our organization tick, right? It's the patient families that we're serving. And I hope, Phil, it's something that we've woven in well over the past few years.
Yeah, I feel like we have, and I know there's more to be done. But I think we tried to be thoughtful about how an organization like UMDF, which fundamentally is an umbrella organization, a home to 400 some and growing every day, different types of forms of mitochondrial disease. And how can you be that umbrella organization and meet the needs generally, but also be prepared to partner and go deep on some topics to address very specific issues around a specific type or a subgroup of mitochondrial disease. And I think it's only through these kinds of conversations and ultimately partnerships with motivated families that it really helps to sharpen our focus. Right, and that's what I appreciate about it. To say, okay, this is important, right? It's important to who we represent, and we need to find a way to get that done. So I look forward to growing even more programming like that in the future, Brian. As you know, we never run short on ideas,
right.
And that's why it comes back around to EFL walks and various fundraising mechanisms, because we can't get away from the fact that programming has a cost associated with it. And if we want to be successful, we have to invest in it. And we can play our part in making the strongest story possible, but it's so much more strong and compelling when it's done in partnership with folks like the Stancombes.
And once we build it, once we create it, there's going to be a better way to do it a year later. And we're going to find the way to do it that way too, because it's what our patient families deserve. I want to come back to that a little bit here, Stephanie. I'm going to turn to you as a way to wrap our conversation today. Speaking in general of what your hope is for the mitochondrial disease community.
Gosh, where do I even begin there?
We've talked about this quite a bit one-on-one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, we really just we want to help others so that they don't experience what we did. We realize maybe some of where those faults occurred in our process, and we really just want to. We think that we have a way to be able to make it better. By through these walks, making more awareness about mitochondrial diseases, helping others understand what we went through, what Gwen went through, to really, to really make it better. Not just, those who are impacting now, but who don't know, because there are a lot of folks out there who are misdiagnosed, and they do have mitochondrial diseases, and we're getting better about that for sure, but definitely think that there's a long journey ahead. So we have a vision for how we want, we would love to see mitochondrial diseases cured in our lifetime. At least I think, there's two main things that we think that we can impact, right here, right now. And that's raising awareness for mitochondrial diseases for just regular, folks out there, but then also through specialists, and then also getting access for the tests in general as well. Because I know we've talked with a lot of different families, and the way they were diagnosed was just very different, all around from ours as well. Everybody was diagnosed at different points in their lifetime, of course, because mitochondrial diseases manifest themselves in all different ways, and at different points in a person's lifetime. For Gwen, it was a little bit later, and she didn't exhibit those signs and symptoms that would normally be present with somebody with cytochrome C oxidase deficiency there. So we do hope that others might be able to catch this diagnosis a little earlier on, be able to make better decisions for their families, have a better quality of life for their loved ones earlier than maybe we were able to with Gwen. Once we found out the diagnosis, we definitely made the right decisions, I think, accordingly. But that's not to say that they weren't easy.
Nick, is there anything that you'd like to share with the mito community?
I think we've kind of said it a bunch of times, but what just really gets me, more dedicated and excited, I guess would be the term I would use, is in all my research, it's incredible how, we're just in the infancy of research in mitochondrial diseases. I mean, this is what appears to be just the beginning, and it's if we can just have a small impact on that journey, and if we can just see, just incremental change over time. I mean, we're not looking for anything revolutionary right now, but if we can just see this evolve into an organization and into a community that, is proficient in diagnosing and treating, I mean, that would honor Gwendolyn, more than anything I can imagine. I mean, that's what I want. I think no matter what, we all want the best for our kids, and we want to be proud of them. And I couldn't be more proud of what Gwen has already done. And I'm just excited to see, what she continues to do and how she speaks to us in the future. Just excited to be part of the organization.
We're delighted to have you leading these efforts, and we couldn't be any more proud to have the two of you in the front lines. I think you're doing an incredible job of, you talk about these kind of little bites at a time here, Nick, but I think there's some opportunities that, driven by volunteer leaders like you, that we're taking some big chunks out of this too. And I think you're spot on in terms of the convergence of activity happening right now. So in terms of the epicenter of research, patient family services, mitoscience in general, coming to a head at one time, it's a good time to be building awareness and raising funds for mitochondrial disease research right now. And we're just so fortunate to have the real boots on the ground. I think you guys are certainly honoring Gwen's legacy, and we feel responsible and honored to be a part of it. So thank you so much for everything you're doing for us. And allow me to thank you for being so open with us today. We know this is something that you are, it's important to you to talk about, but we know it's also not easy. So we're grateful that you've made that decision to honor Gwen that way too. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's an honor. Yeah.
Really, truly is.
Well, Phil, we normally do a big wrap here about subscribing to our YouTube channel and going on Facebook and LinkedIn. And, I think I need to just say, this episode is dedicated to warriors like Gwen and the warriors before her. And those that, we wake up every day to kick down the doors and bring an intensity to our work. We talk a lot about this at UMDF, right? Like, we're sick of it.
Yeah.
And yes, we're making progress, but we know where we need to go. And it takes, not to sound so cliche, but it truly does take a village of doctors, researchers, organizations like UMDF, partner organizations, and then boots on the ground, patient families, volunteers who said, we've had enough too, and we're going to make it a priority that no one else has to go through this. And boy, the Stancombe certainly are living that out for us.
Yeah, I just can't underscore enough how important it is to UMDF as an organization to have these kinds of partners within the patient community. We desire it. We want more to reach out to us so that we can find ways to connect like that and hear what inspires you and your story and what aspect, right, of the overall mitochondrial disease picture that you want to be involved with. If there's one thing I'm really proud of our team, I think it's made up of a group of people that are always open to hearing and bringing in partners to try to continue to evolve the UMDF mission, right, in a way that's valuable. So in that regard, the Stancombes are just incredible, role models, if you will, for how hopefully other families will make similar decisions to get involved with UMDF.
Well, you're a brilliant co-host, Phil, because I was thinking the same thing. There's really two things we're not short on at UMDF. We're not short on ideas, to the chagrin of my executive administrative assistant and so many folks who have to go help organize our world. We're always looking at new ways to do better. But we're not short on shoulders to lean on. We're not short on ears listening in. So I think that's our message that I'd like to close with today is connect with us.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a patient family, if you're a researcher, if you're an industry partner, we will always answer the phone. We always take the call. We want to hear. This is how we craft our vision. This is how we craft our strategy. It's the spirit of our community is what drives that. So I'm going to leave our viewers and listeners with that today. Outside of subscribing to our YouTube channel and checking us out on social media, where you can find this conversation and many more, please visit umdf.org to connect with us today. Until next time, everyone, go fast.
Bye, everybody.